My guest today is Kiersten Pilar Miller. She's an American in Rome. She founded the Milk Bar in 2009, which was a shop and a meeting place for pregnancy, motherhood, breastfeeding. And in 2017, the Milk Bar evolved to become Bellies Abroad. Hi, Kiersten. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me.
Kiersten, somewhere on your website, it says, changing the world one birth at a time. That's a bold, powerful statement, which I love. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, when I had opened my store, the Milk Bar, I had recently given birth to my daughter here in Rome, and the availability of useful things for new parents was extremely limited. There were the baby supermarkets, but all of the gadgets that are pretty much useless and just cost a lot of money. And so I opened up the Milk Bar based upon my own needs and my own experiences of what I found useful, which were breastfeeding clothing, good baby carriers. And being in the store each day, it gave me such a unique view into the experiences that women were having. Because when they would come into the store and they would have a new baby, I would always ask, how was the birth? And I realized that's not a question that many women are ever asked. They're asked, how's the baby, right? Always the first question. But being asked, how was your birth? And women would speak, and they would, it was a bit of an opening of floodgates, and they would start telling me their experiences. And there were so many women who were having very negative experiences. And I looked into trying to understand why. And I started working with a wonderful midwife here in Rome. And we started the first ongoing English prenatal course. And the basis of the course was to give families fact-based information so that they could make their own decisions, their own informed decisions about what they were looking for when it came to childbirth, instead of just accepting what was thrust upon them. And we started doing this 8 years ago. And we told our families that putting together a birth plan was a good idea. It's a good exercise for a couple to go through, so there's an understanding of what everyone is looking for and how they can make that happen. And when we started this, everyone said, but if I show up, are they going to accept my birth plan? And I said, you know what? Not very likely, but it's a good exercise for you as a couple. And each person that shows up with the birth plan is paving the road for all of the women who come after them. And after having done this for 8 years, there has been much more acceptance into women arriving with birth plans, and structures are beginning to listen to them. And this is something that we have been able to change by each individual family going in and saying, okay, these are my hopes and dreams and the wishes that I would like to have respected. And I feel that that has had more of an effect being a sort of grassroots movement as opposed to just changing hospital protocol, because changing people's behaviors is not an easy thing. It has been the women themselves who are the ones who are really affecting the change. And so that is changing the world one birth at a time, just giving each individual woman the tools and the understanding so that she is able to speak for herself, and then in turn also those women who come behind them.
So we interviewed you a few years ago now for our blog. And I remember you saying at the time that Rome is a very child-friendly city. It's a family-friendly city, but it's not a mama-friendly city. Do you feel that the work that you did with the Milk Bar and the work that you're now doing with Bellies Abroad is changing the setup for mothers in the city?
There have been changes. I certainly can't say that I take credit for them, or I'd like to think that maybe we contributed a bit to them, but it's been a bit of a recipe. I mean, social media has given women forums to discuss things that they never had a chance to really put out there and have a lot of feedback. I mean, you know, birth, which is a rather intimate experience, it is something that was mostly spoken about with close girlfriends, family members, but now having different Facebook groups and social media like that is a place where, there are moms online, let me tell you, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, asking all kinds of questions, whether they're health related, child rearing related, or restaurant related, but it is, I sort of refer to it as the mamas in Rome artificial intelligence, because it's community sourced and it's information and there's always feedback. And, back when I gave birth to my daughter, there weren't these resources. My community was the La Leche League, which does breastfeeding information and support. And that was really my community, along with a few close girlfriends. But now, having the ability to discuss these things and having platforms where open discussion can happen, things are changing. There are more restaurants that have changing tables. There are co-working spaces for mothers that have daycare in them, things that 10, 15 years ago were just unheard of. So yes, things are changing a bit, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. But what people really like is the interaction with other mums on the Facebook groups and the WhatsApp groups, like you said. So I think that's got to be the same the world over, that you can Google things and find out things, there's so much information out there. But at the end of the day, you need to connect with your tribe, with people going through the same thing as you. And I guess that was one of the successful things about the milk bar when you had it. Do you feel that you miss that part of kind of the community actually seeing each other, or are you still able to do that with Bellies Abroad?
Well, it was one of the reasons why the milk bar evolved into Bellies Abroad, is because while the milk bar was a store, we did courses and meetings and support groups. And those were the things that got me out of bed in the morning. It was where I felt we had the most impact. It was, beautiful, creating communities of women. And in our particular community, which focuses on expat women, we are living in Italy. We are living within a society that is based upon having a family and a support network around you. And an expat family, it's usually just the mom and the dad who are here together, or in some cases, two moms, or in some cases, single moms. And not having the network around them to give that support emotionally, and oftentimes even logistically, it is felt so much more acutely in this particular little subculture that we are. But with Bellies Abroad, we keep doing the meetings and the support groups. And it is one of the most important things to me that we do. We've luckily been able to continue online, but there is a little bit of the magic that isn't quite there when you're not able to physically be in the same space.
The positive side of it is, though, that you can communicate with mums all over Italy. They don't have to just be in Rome. It's not a physical place that they're visiting. You can do these Zoom courses and Zoom chats and incorporate everybody in Italy. So that's a great thing, presumably.
Well, that is one of the things that made me decide to set up Bellies Abroad, is because in Rome, we have a very large mobile population. We have 3 very large UN agencies that are based here. And we also have 3 embassies for every country, because we have the mission to Italy, the mission to the Holy See, and then the missions to the UN agencies themselves. So we have this population where their contracts are usually about 3 years. And so there's a lot of rotation in and out. And we've done consultations with women and families in Bangkok, in Sweden, in Holland, a lot of African countries where many of the UN staff can be sent on mission. And I set up what I only realized during COVID, which was the first public-facing telehealth platform in Bellies Abroad. And that was because our families are so mobile. And we would have people who would be based in Japan, but coming to Rome, they were going to be 6 months pregnant, and having that first interaction with your care providers or myself, which I call the mombassador, to just give an idea of the lay of the land and what to expect when they're here. We started using telehealth visits in order to give our community what was needed, because it is a very unique kind of culture where, you know, they're moving all of the time and needing the ability to remotely access information and healthcare providers and to ask all of those questions.
So you started out helping English-speaking mothers, expats in general, and I guess most of your work is still with the English-speaking community. But if you're helping to change things, the process which is going on in hospitals with gynaecologists and so on, you must be also helping Italian women inadvertently.
Well, I mean, inadvertently to some extent, yes, but also we do have quite a few Italians who have joined our courses. We also have an Italian birth course that our midwives run. So we do work in the local community as well. But yes, I think foreign women find it easier to question the status quo when it's not their own country. And so oftentimes we will even sort of tell our moms that, you know, if you're getting pushback in a hospital setting, you just say, you know what, I know I'm the crazy foreigner, but this is how it's done in my country. And so this is how I would like to proceed. And so I think in a way that being a foreigner gives license, and there's also more permission from the institutions to allow for the non-traditional way of doing things for them. But yes, there is an impact that spills over.
I remember from the blog interview that we did a few years ago, that you started off by talking about the language, the Italian language. I don't remember the term. I'm hoping that you're going to remember it for me. When a doctor talks about a woman giving birth.
In Italian, it's io l'ho fatto partorire. I delivered her. And the active verb goes to the doctor, not to the woman. And in English, I delivered my baby. But in the Italian lexicon, mi ha fatto partorire is what a woman says. He or she made me deliver. And it's something that in English we've also heard, he or she delivered my baby. And I always tell women, no, you delivered your baby. He or she attended your delivery. And I do believe that words matter and language is powerful. And women, they always smile when I correct them. It's, I hope it's not taken as a sort of ornery school marm, but they usually smile and they just go, yeah, you're right. I delivered my baby. And I think that's important. I think the language surrounding all of that does make a big difference.
I agree. And you're really changing a very ingrained cultural idea there, aren't you? So that's kind of tough to do, I think. So yeah, you're doing something great there. Your community spirit shines through. It's great what you're doing. So you've come a long way in 10 years. If you think about, when you first opened up the milk bar, what about the next 10 years? Do you have a vision for the future?
Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, especially during COVID, thinking to the next day seemed like a stretch. So like the next 10 years, that's really projecting. I have recently started working as a consultant on the innovation team at Bambino Gesù Children's Hospital here in Rome. And that has really allowed me to take the knowledge that I've gained over these past 10 years and bring it into a public hospital setting, which allows me to have an even wider reach and helping bring projects through that can have impact using new technologies and different ways of solving problems is something that I really enjoyed. And it was supposed to be a 3-month contract that's now turned into a 1.5 years. And my hope is to be able to keep going and also to be able to create communities amongst the hospitals here to get people working together, because we really need to work together, especially when we're facing something like COVID, and a sharing of resources and a sharing of knowledge, which isn't necessarily the way things usually work here very often, but encouraging that to happen so that we can keep as many people safe as possible. It has been really rewarding. And so I would like to keep moving in that direction.
Kiki, thanks for joining us today. You're obviously passionate about your subject, and it clearly shows through the website and the work that you're doing. If people want to find out more about Bellies Abroad, I guess they should come to your website. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a pretty good way. And there they will have access to all of our fact-based information, which are all of our articles. They can also check out our providers who clearly are doing online appointments, and we're doing so even before the pandemic. And they will also be able to take a look at our different community offerings, our courses, our meetings, and other things. So it should all be there to check out.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
What's your favorite restaurant in Rome?
Trattoria Morgana, which is right downstairs from my house, and my daughter grew up learning in their kitchen.
Your favorite shape of pasta?
Completely depends on what kind of pasta sauce you're having.
Your favorite weekend activity in the city?
Favorite weekend activity in the city is usually a bike ride, meeting a friend for an aperitivo in the piazza, and then my daughter and I going to my best friend's house for dinner, who my daughter refers to as the best restaurant in Rome.
Your favorite getaway outside of the city?
We go to a lake called Martignano, which I go to with my 2 best friends and their children. And it is just the most peaceful, wonderful place. It's a volcanic lake, and you get there and you just feel the stress beginning to melt away.
One thing that you would like to change about Rome, if you could?
Just one?
Just one.
Just one? Oh, that's a tough one. Well, sticking with the theme of the interview, I would say getting people to park properly so that people with strollers can actually make it down the street and across the street.
What do you love about Italians?
I love their openness and their warmth, and that they treat children as though they were little kings and queens, and just really engage them as a part of daily life, as opposed to having the children's world and the adult world. It's very family inclusive.
One piece of advice for families thinking of relocating to Rome?
Ooh, one piece of advice. Bring a lot of patience with you.
Do you ride around Rome on a moped?
No, but during, at the end of quarantine, the government gave a bonus for people buying bikes, and that included electric bikes. So I now have an electric bike that I pedal all around Rome. But no, I do not drive a scooter. I am from New York, and driving is not one of my most fun hobbies to do.
What do you miss from the US?
Friends and family.
And your life in 3 words?
Oh, wow. Can I tell a short story?
Sure.
Okay. So life in 3 words. When I was home in New York last, I walked into a thrift shop, and there was an amazing art installation that had 3 panels. And it was each panel had a sort of superhero female character. And it said, the first one said advocate, the second one said caregiver, and the third one said entrepreneur. And I took a photo of it. I loved it so much. And I posted it on Facebook, and everyone just responded, that is you. That is completely you. And so I would use those words, which would be advocate, caregiver, and entrepreneur.